What is going on, guys? This is Versus All Gaming with my review of Bleach chapter 565. And this chapter, it was definitely a rather nice change of pace, so to say, because we basically learned the history or, some of the past of Yhwach. So it starts off with him being born as an infant that was blind, deaf, mute, and immobile. And for some reason, even though he knew that he had no tools at his disposal for survival, he knew that it was going to live no matter what. And that's just kind of crazy when you think about it, how he knew that no matter what happens to him, he definitely knew that he was going to be alive. But him as a baby, he was basically treated like a prized possession because people that would touch him, they were healed of whatever problem they had, whether it was a lung disease, broken hearts, courage that was found for cowards, and even cripples who lost function of their limbs were able to regain that by touching Yhwach. And the reason why he could do that, it was because his soul, it was so large that he was able to break off pieces of it and give it to people, and that piece, it was able to fill a void in their own soul that kind of like limit them. But the thing is, those people who had touched them, they weren't meant to be living for much longer. As some people live for a couple of years, a couple of months, and some people only live for a few days, but they all met their end. And every time they died, his soul will return, but his soul returned with like part of theirs. And through those people dying, giving him, their own souls, as kind of like compensation, he slowly over time gained function over his own features that he lost. So he was able to hear, he was able to see, and of course, he could move. And he basically, became a regular person, or at least a normal person, after he absorbed so many other people's souls, after he took back his own. And they actually gave him the name of a god that people had worshipped, and that's how he got the name Yhwach. And so that right there, it was definitely interesting because I had no idea that his past would start off like that. Because that right there, it's just kind of crazy if you think about it. How a baby can actually suffer from that, and yet at the same time he knew that he'll be all right. But we see now, back at the present time, he's actually, kind of sleeping, or at least, he has his eyes closed, and he knows that James has died thanks to Renji, and he was saying that that he could return, which means that he's going to absorb his soul and get back his power, what would make him a heck of a lot stronger. But he was saying that he can't help but pat himself on the back. And so then we actually see James' soul, or Yhwach's soul, returning to him. And so we see that Uryu, he's actually going to ask Yhwach a question, but he is stopped by Hashbolt. And we learn that whenever Yhwach is sleeping, Hashbolt actually takes over as the leader, because him and Yhwach, they have this strong connection. And that right there is obvious because we all know that he is the second in command. And so he was saying that not only is him and Yhwach bound together, but Yhwach is also bound to all Quincy's, because he is basically the father of Quincy's. And so we see that there's like this huge tension between Uryu and Hashbolt. That right there is obvious because everybody knows that like Hashbolt should be the real successor, and yet Yhwach picked Ishida for that, or Uryu. So that right there is very interesting. But we actually go back to the past, and we see that he is still able to pass on people. He's still able to pass on like parts of his soul to people. But the thing is, he could actually he actually evolved that ability by actually writing an initial from his own soul onto somebody else to give them a greater power. That is why we see all of the Quincy's so far represent a certain letter, because that right there, it shows you the power that they got for Yhwach. And it's kind of crazy to think that like somebody like James got such a ridiculous power from Yhwach, because people hated James, even though I thought James was actually pretty cool. He was an hilarious character. I actually liked James, unlike others. People just hated him. So I do wonder, if James has such a ridiculous power, you could only imagine the other kind of powers that some other Quincy's might have, because I'm pretty sure they'll be even more outrageous than he is, so to say. And so now we learned that this chalice that Uryu had drunk from, that we saw like a lot of chapters ago by now, it actually contained Yhwach's blood, and by him doing that, Uryu now has a letter on his soul, but we don't know what letter that is. But I would imagine that is A, because I believe that Hashball is B, so maybe Uryu could have possibly C, because I don't think we've seen anybody with that letter yet. If we have, I'm definitely wrong, but we see now that Uryu have realized what happened, he's rather shocked. And for some reason, Hashball definitely doesn't like that look. And he even gives him this cold stare. So it's obvious that he's not playing around anymore. And so now we know that basically anybody that receives part of a soul is not meant to live. So it's kind of like all of these Quincy's were definitely going to die anyway. And even even Hashball said that all these Quincy's live for him, but they also literally die for him as well. And we see that Hashball said that all of the Stern Ritter and all of the Shinigami who possess a portion of His Majesty's soul, and we see that in this panel we see Byakuya and what's his name, Sanjin, whatever his name is. You all know what I'm talking about. We see these two in that panel as well, and we know that their bank cards got stolen. So it's like Yhwach, he had infused his own Quincy souls into bankais, but because hollows are rather poisonous to Quincy's, by them taking that pill and absorbing it, making their bankais a little bit hollowified, does it rid them of Yhwach's soul? I'm pretty sure that right there will be explained, but it's definitely something important. And we learned that Yhwach, he always has to rage his war, because if he doesn't, then he'll regress back to when he was blind, deaf, and mute and immobile, and he'll even become old. So that right there explains why he is looking so young, unlike Yamamoto, who definitely aged. So that right there definitely makes sense. And so for this guy to always rage war, I would wonder, after he, let's say that Yhwach defeated all of the Shinigami, who would he go after next? So I mean, it really doesn't matter, because he definitely can absorb hollows. So it's like, if he does win this war with them, he'll eventually die anyway, or at least he'll regress back to his former, hollow shell of his former glory being. So it would definitely, make sense for him to find somebody else to go after, rather than the Shinigami. But this chapter, it was definitely dark, because basically, Yhwach is always getting stronger. No matter who was winning or who was losing, he's always getting stronger. So that right there goes to show you, how overpowered this character is going to seem to be when he finally steps up and goes into action. But now the sun is coming up, and Hashball was saying that Yhwach is going to awaken soon, and he was saying that daybreak is now here, and he's thanking all the souls that he absorbed for keeping all of his senses intact. So now I'm kind of worried with him being like this. I'm definitely wondering how in the world is Ichigo going to take this guy down, because obviously Ichigo is a heck of a lot stronger with his new Zanpakuto. But Yhwach is always getting stronger. It's like this guy is going to have an infinite amount of strength. So I'm definitely looking forward to this clash. But next week, in the next chapter, I am hoping that we see Rukia, because I still want to see her fight, and I want to see how much she improved. But like I said, this chapter, it was good. I was definitely intrigued by Yhwach's past, and now I'm definitely more curious to see what is he going to do with all of this power that he is constantly absorbing. But as always, please do not forget to like the video and subscribe because that really helps me out. But as always, you gotta take it easy, and I'll see you all next time.